You are about to be locked inside the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition, we are going to be talking with a Super Bowl champion who won it with the Baltimore Ravens in 2000. He also went to the Pro Bowl in 1997, was the WAC Offensive Player of the Year in 1993, and is currently the head coach in Birmingham, Alabama at UAB. Trent Dilfer will join us on this edition of the Stingray Show to talk about his career at Fresno State, his career in the NFL, and coaching up at UAB right now on this edition of the Stingray Show.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
And with that, I want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. We have a huge guest on tap for you guys this evening. Like I said off the top of the show, he is a Super Bowl winning quarterback with Baltimore in the year of 2000. He played his college career at Fresno State from 1990 through 1993 and played in 32 games and passed for almost 7,000 yards in college and 51 touchdowns. Please help us welcome to the Stingray Show the current head coach of UAB up in Birmingham, Alabama, Mr. Trent Dilfer. Coach, how are things with you on this summer evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Thank you, Coach. So real quick, I do want to ask you, talk about your coaching experience so far up there at UAB.
Well, it's been disappointing, to be quite honest. I obviously you don't ever want to go into something and not be successful. And I felt like I had a solid plan coming in. I knew there was a lot to learn, moving from kind of my NFL world and into the high school world and now into the college football world. I didn't realize the things that you can't control, and I think the first year we understood it was kind of a rebuild, new people in the building, both players and staff. We felt like after year one, we made some changes, and year two was going to be, felt like we were a bowl team in year two. I think we wildly underachieved. I will take the blame for all of that. And I think with each year's comes some learning. And if you're not growing, you're dying. So I've grown a lot. The people I've brought in the building have grown a lot, and we're trying to turn this thing around. And again, feel like we've made the appropriate decisions and steps to take it to the next level. But we'll see. That's why we play the games, right? You can prepare all you want. You still got to go play the games and make plays in critical moments and be good coaches during the storms of a game. And we'll see how we handle all those challenges this year.
Coach Dilfer, who was one coach, looking back at your career? It could have been someone in Pop Warner. It could have been a college coach. It could have been someone in the NFL, whoever it might be. But who was one coach that really kind of turned you on to coaching, like, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing this one day? Who's one guy that really influenced you? And I'm sure there's more than one.
That's a great question, actually. For years I resisted coaching. I was told my entire career as a player that I should coach. I was offered a ton. I mean, more than 10 coaching jobs while I was playing in the NFL. That my last year in the NFL, I was offered a front office job, a positional job, and even an assistant coordinator job in the NFL. And I just vehemently did not want to do it. And it was mainly because I had young girls. My daughters were teenagers at the time, or preteens, and as I was leaving the NFL, and I had only seen a couple coaches with daughters do it well. I had seen most coaches with daughters kind of abandon their families and bow at the throne of football, and I didn't want to be that type of dad. So that's really why I went into TV and spent my 9 years at ESPN. Was I didn't want to coach. I kind of ran from coaching. But deep down, there had been a seed planted. And I would say the three people that I'd say 4. My stepfather was a coach, so I was the son of a coach. So I saw what he did at the high school level and how many people he impacted. Coach Holmgren was a high school teacher and a high school coach before he became a coach at BYU, then eventually Hall of Fame coach in the NFL. And then Tony Dungy and Clyde Christensen. I played for them for 4 years in Tampa. Everybody knows who Tony is, but Clyde is, he's been a quarterback coach coordinator in the NFL for years. He coached me first, and unfortunately had to coach this guy named Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Andrew Luck after me.
Right.
Never heard of those guys.
Yeah, it was a real buzzkill for his career, leaving me and having to go to those guys. But what Tony and Clyde taught me was you could be great at what you do, but love people even better than how you coach them. Right. And really care about the person and develop the man and develop good fathers, husbands, and earners, providers. And when I was at ESPN, I really enjoyed my first 5 years. And then the last 4 years, I really didn't love the climate of sports television. I didn't love the agenda-driven part of it. And I kind of felt a call on my heart to do something different. Well, I retired in 2017, moved my family to Texas, lived on a lake, played golf every day, kind of thought that was the drop the mic moment. And just really felt like I had no purpose. And, God kind of through the course of a couple of years called me into coaching is how I feel about it. And I've never looked back, and I don't really want to do anything else. I love the challenges. I love the battles. These last 2 years have been, brutal and just gutted me from a professional standpoint, but from a purpose standpoint, I've never felt more peace. I've never felt more joy. I love what I do. I love the challenges of college football. I love the people I work with. So that's kind of been the journey. I know I gave you a long-winded answer, but it's a little more complicated than just a coach that inspired me.
So, Coach, let's go back to where it all started for you. You are originally from Santa Cruz, California. Growing up, who were some of your idols that you wanted to mold your game like?
Yeah, it's weird. I grew up in a coastal community in Northern California, kind of the hippie, surfing, skateboarding, kind of everything that people, kind of pigeonhole us Northern Californians as. That's kind of what I grew up as, to be quite honest. All my buddies surfed, all the things that you think about when you think about Northern California coastal communities. But I was kind of an outlier because I was the son of a coach. And my stepdad had played at the University of California. He was a fullback. He was a team captain, had developed a really good high school football program, then went on to be a junior college coach, had turned down some Division I offers to coach because he wanted to watch me grow up. And I was kind of the play all the sports, change in the van, three sports a day, just love competing. It was a really cool upbringing, but it was very different than my friends. I was always kind of set apart in the sense that I didn't do what everybody else was doing. And I got an opportunity to everybody recruited me as a tight end. So my senior year in high school, I was like 6'4", 225, could run really well as a 4'6" guy, was super strong, could get in the squat rack and squat 450 pounds as a senior in high school. I could bench 300 pounds. Like I was the best basketball player. I was a 4 handicap in golf. I threw in the 90s off the bump, ran track just for the meets, kind of just a total jock, and just loved every piece of it. So everybody recruited me as an athlete, either an outside linebacker or tight end, the Pac-10 schools back then. And I just really wanted to play quarterback. And my stepdad had kind of planted the seed in my head that, hey, you're good enough to turn into a quarterback. Now, I was not a very good high school quarterback. I was a really good athlete playing quarterback. I was the second biggest kid on my team. We didn't play high-level football at all. The competition, you'd call it small ball here in Alabama. But I was dominant. And Fresno State, they came out to watch a quarterback that was number 1 on their list that I was playing basketball against in our gym. And we had a pretty well-known pretty historic high school basketball program, and this team was coming in to play us, and he came down from Fresno to watch this other quarterback play just to kind of seal the deal with him. And I went for 44 that night and dunked on him like 6 times. And the coach came in and met me on the floor. He's like, listen, I didn't even know your name until I made a phone call back to the offices. I saw that you're like way down our list of quarterbacks, but after what I saw tonight, I'd love to teach you how to play. Would you like to come on a visit? And I was like, yes. If anybody could have offered me to play quarterback, anybody in America, and I would have gone there. And it happened to be Fresno, and took my official visit that weekend. And I remember walking into Jim Sweeney, who's a famous head coach, who was the head coach at the time. And I said, I'll commit. And he goes, son, you haven't been offered yet. So like that's how ignorant I was of the whole thing, but it worked out well. I had a great experience at Fresno. We had a lot of really good players. I left after my junior year as a 6th pick of the draft. So it's just a phenomenal experience at Fresno. In fact, I use, both building the high school program in Tennessee and what we're trying to do here at UAB. I still use a lot of the principles taught to me by Coach Sweeney and Jeff Tedford, who is my offense coordinator back at Fresno. Still use a lot of those same principles.
Coach, you mentioned all the sports you played in high school. What was your second best sport? Just rank the top 3. What were you best at, 1, 2, and 3?
Basketball is by far my best. Not even close. I was I wouldn't say heavily recruited, like not Alabama, Auburn level, but I was a really good, probably mid-major, 2 guard, 3. When I went to Fresno, they were pretty good at the time, and I ran a lot of the off seasons with them. I'd play, pickup games with them, work with their basketball team. I could always score. It was hard to defend the 2 or the 3 when you're 225 pounds. I was a big guy, so I like a post body with 2 or 3 skills.
You are a power guard.
Yeah, I was like a power. That's a good way to say it. I was a power guard. I could have played. I had offers from Santa Clara, St. Mary's at the time, Gonzaga before they were Gonzaga, that type of level player. So I was by far the best basketball player. Golf was probably my second best. I won the league championship my junior and my senior year I came in second. My junior year I won it. So I was a pretty good golfer. And then football is probably my third best just because I was not very skilled. I was athletic and I was physical. I just wasn't very skilled.
So, Trent, hold on. Now, Coach, in 1990, you were a part of something that is no longer possible. During the Utah State game, while they were at Fresno, you guys tied 24-24. Looking back at that now, how insane was it that you could tie in a football game? And what was that experience like for you?
I don't even remember that, to be honest with you, Stingray. I honestly have no recollection of that. some of that, I got to school in 90. I don't really remember a lot of that year. I had ended up tearing my shoulder up my true freshman year and redshirting, and then ended up starting, I think, 4, 5, 6 games my redshirt freshman year in 91, and then started every game in 92 and 93. So 1990 was a blur. I wasn't making great decisions in college, like a lot of college kids, and don't honestly remember much about it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, Dilfer, I do want to ask you, what games do you remember? What game haunts you the most looking back, whether that's Pop Warner, NFL, whatever? What game haunts you the most? And what game do you look back on the most and smile at?
It's a great question. I think the game that the couple of haunting. I mean, you remember every bad play as a quarterback.
Right.
I threw something like, I don't know, 117 interceptions in the NFL. It might even be higher than that. I still don't look at the back of my football card because it's embarrassing. But you have a lot of bad ones, and you remember almost every bad play. The ones that stick out the most, and these might be odd, but our school rival in high school, we had never beat. Our high school had never beat. And my school, my junior year, had put in lights for the first time. We'd always play Saturday mornings. And and they'd put in lights. So we moved to a Friday night lights kind of environment, which was epic. And our rival, they weren't really a rival because they just destroyed us every year. We happened to host them the first game under the lights. So it was a big deal. And we got down 21-0. Typical game against this team. They're kicking our butts. And then, I really took over in the second half, and running and throwing got us back. And we're down 21-20. We'd scored our third touchdown. And I go to the sideline, and the head coach says, "Hey, Trent, you got us here. Do you want to go for the win or the tie?" And I said, "Let's go for the win." And we called a great play. The coach called a great play. My best skill player was wide open in the flat for the 2-point conversion. I absolutely dirted it. I just choked my brains out and dirted it, and we lost. The good news is we ended up beating in my senior year. But anyhow, that I can still remember the play. I can remember where the ball landed. You could walk me back to the high school field, which is now named after my son. And I could show you where that ball landed and where he was, how open he was. I remember a game against the Lions in Tampa where I was trying to throw a back end line pass at the end of the game to win the game. We'd marched the length of the field, and the ball literally on a twist, the nose guard twist with the 3 technique, and he comes across, and I go to release the ball, and it kind of nicks off his finger and gets deflected and goes to the safety for an interception. Everybody thought I just threw it to the safety. And you had to slow down the film really, really slow to see that, it hit this guy's finger and it had deflected. It was receiver Jacquez Green was wide open in the back of the end zone. I was going to throw it to him. It deflects to the safety, and that one haunts me. And then we had Brett Favre beat on a Sunday night game in Lambeau. And, I never beat Brett up in Lambeau as a Buck. I ended up beating him as a Brown up there. But we were playing them in Lambeau on a Sunday night, big game. This is when we had turned it around. We were a good football team. I want to say it was 98. And we were down, and we go on a 2-minute drive and, run, pass. I ended up handing off a draw to Allstott. He goes about 30 for a touchdown, and we take the lead with, I think it was 51 seconds. We kick it off. We pin them. Good special teams play. We don't let them really move the ball. There's 12 seconds. I want to say there's 8 seconds left in the game. They're on the 50-yard line, and we're up 4 or 5. We're up more than a field goal. We're there's no way we're losing this game. And this is the famous game where Matt Hasselback, who now is one of my best friends and I played with in Seattle, steals the signal from Lovie Smith that we're going to zero blitz them. And Brett gets the line of scrimmage and looks over the sideline, and Matt Hasselback tells him, "Hey, zero blitz is coming." And he kind of, with people in his face, off his back foot, about his own 45, launches just this unbelievable rainbow versus zero pressure. And Antonio Freeman in the back of the end zone against, I don't know if it was Lynch or Barber or somebody, covering him with his back to him, goes up and catches it, and he walks off a kind of a Hail Mary type play. And I just remember sitting there going, man, I got Favre'd again. It was gutting because we had played so well, and it was such a big rivalry in the NFC North. And man, that one haunts me. There's plenty of others. I mean, there's so many games that you go to bed at night. I never think about the good ones. Our first state championship game at Lipscomb when we lost, ended up winning 2 in a row after that to the same, beating the same team. But that first one guts me a lot from my time here at UAB. I mean, the Tulane game, my first year, we have Tulane beat there. We have 12 men on the field. And on a 4th down special teams play that extends the drive, that ends up being the winning drive for them. Our quarterback tries to quarterback sneak it on the 1-yard line and tries to go over the top and poke the ball over, which we've never taught one time while we've been here. It's never been talked about to do. He decides to do his own thing, and the ball gets knocked out, and it's a touchback. I lose my temper, goes viral, me yelling at a coach, which I regret. There's just so many things that when you have a journey like mine in football, it's unfortunate, but I'm assuming if you ask Saban the same thing, or if you ask Hugh Freeze the same thing, or Kalen DeBoer or whoever, we don't really remember the good ones because you expect to win every week. You expect to play well. You expect to coach well. You expect your preparation to show up. So when it doesn't, it just absolutely guts you from a professional standpoint. I mean, the nights that you don't sleep as after the game as a player and as a coach are just, they stack up. And but that's kind of what makes it awesome too. It's like life, you're either in a storm or you're coming out of a storm. And football is very much the same way.
So, Coach, your final game in college at Fresno State came against Colorado in the Aloha Bowl on Christmas Day. Coach, talk about that experience of playing a college football game on Christmas Day, please.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good story. We got married in college, my wife and I. We have our 32nd anniversary in about a month, or actually in about 3 weeks. And so she had gone over there with me, and I get really sick. I got the flu. So I missed the first couple days of practice. I had a high temperature. It was her first time like having to take care of a sick husband, and I'm a total baby when I get a fever. Like I go from 6'4", 240 to about 5'3", 130, little, softy when I get sick. So I'm miserable. I don't want to play. It's humid. So when I do go to practice, I'm sweating, uncontrollably. They're really good. That was the Cordell Stewart team in Colorado that had, I want to say they had 11 dudes playing the league off that team. They were stacked. And we knew we were the inferior team, and we knew we were not going to be able to run the football. So Tedford comes to me before the game. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to throw it every down. We'll throw a draw in here every once in a while, but we got to go by how you go." And I ended up throwing. You probably have the stats. I think I threw for like 570 yards. And we kept it a game. We just couldn't stop them defensively. I don't know what we lost by, but I do remember one play vividly. I had thrown 4 interceptions in week 2 that year against Oregon State. And I had played with a bad shoulder and threw 4 interceptions. We still ended up winning the game, even though I threw 4 interceptions. And but I was just like, I'm never throwing another interception again. And I didn't. I went the entire season and did not throw an interception. In fact, I held an NCAA record for years on most consecutive passes without an interception. Well, we throw my favorite receiver in college, and I hope my other ones don't ever hear this interview, was a kid named Titus Winans. He actually ended up getting drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round by the Redskins the same year I got drafted. But he runs a skinny post from on my left from about the 20-yard line, and I ripped one into him, and it's going to be a touchdown. Titus never dropped the ball. Like, he had great hands, great ball skills, was physical, and it was right about his eye line. And he puts his hands up, and I'd throw on it, ripped it so hard that it kind of came off his hands and off his face mask, and it gets intercepted in the back of the end zone. And I wanted so badly to finish the season without throwing an interception, and that one goes off his hands and gets intercepted. But it is what it is. Again, it's amazing. I can't remember any of the completed passes in that game. I really can't. I think I completed probably 30-something passes and for a ton of yards, and I can't remember one of the completions, but the demon on my shoulder still remembers the interception.
So, Coach, after your incredible college career of throwing for 7,000 yards and 51 touchdowns, you were picked 6th overall in the first round of the NFL draft. Walk us through that experience of being a first-round draft pick and hearing your name called so early there on the draft night.
Well, it's a dream come true. How many kids get to live out their dream? I was like every other 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old that sits in the backyard and throws to my imaginary receiver for the Super Bowl winning touchdown, right? Or, watches the draft and goes, "That's going to be me one day." There's tens of thousands of kids that were just like me dreaming. I'm blessed enough to be able to actually live it. And it was phenomenal. At the time, it was a very weird experience because there's this famous clip of Mel Kiper getting into it with Bill Tobin, who's the GM of the Indianapolis Colts, for not picking me and picking Trev Alberts. And, the whole thing was manufactured. When people say things are kind of done ahead of time in sports, they're not necessarily wrong. A lot of the conspiracy theorists in sports are actually right. I was supposed to go number 1 to the Bengals or 3 to the Redskins.
Right.
And the night before I found out I wasn't going 1 because they were going to go defense with Big Daddy Wilkerson. And then I woke up that morning thinking I was going 3 to the Redskins. We had already looked at houses in Washington. You know, I got to know their coordinator and head coach North Turner really well, their GM Charlie Casserly. Like we're for sure going to the Redskins.
Right.
And then Norv had a change of heart that morning, ended up choosing Heath Schuler. So the Colts were going to take me at 4, and they had taken Marshall Faulk at 2. And my agent at the time said, hey, you don't want to play for the Colts. They're a wreck. Like, we're not going to let you play for the Colts. We'll hold out the whole year if they take you, and you'll be the first pick of expansion the next year, the Carolina Panthers. And, you know, at that time, you made enough money before the draft through endorsement deals that we had more money than we knew what to do with. Right. So we were like, okay, that's whatever. You know, you're kind of trusting your representation at the time. Now I look back and I'd never make that decision again. I would never do that again. I totally disagree with how we handled it, but that's how we handled it. So that's the whole battle between Mel Kiper and Bill Tobin, which then allowed me to go 6 to Tampa. So I had never, I didn't know much about Tampa. I'd spent a little time with Sam Weish, the head coach, but so it was kind of it was bittersweet. Like, it was awesome to be drafted that early, but the expectation going into that draft was 1 or 3. Right. And you end up going 6, and, you know, that's not a huge slide, but it's a slide to a team that you didn't really want to go to at the time. Now, I ended up trying to make the best out of the experience. It was you know, like the rest of my career, it was up and down experience in Tampa, but we did do a lot of cool things and took the worst franchise in football and turned it into a perennial winner. So for that, you know, there's a lot of satisfaction in that.
And Coach, you were the first quarterback in Tampa Bay history to go to the Pro Bowl. Talk about that experience, please.
You know, it's nice to have on your resume, but honestly, I don't think I deserved it. You know, it was one of those, we were such a great story. It was the first time in 17 years that Tampa had gone to the playoffs, and people remember these names: Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, because they're Hall of Famers. Right. You know, Rondé Barber, Hall of Famer. You know, so we had built a team that was really good defensively. And then offensively, it was like, guys, probably you might remember Warwick Dunn, you might remember Mike Allstott, you probably don't remember me, and then you won't remember any of the receivers or tight ends because they were kind of journeyman guys, and we were kind of just a blue collar offense that played, you know, kind of that ground and pound opportunistic offense. My stats weren't very good, but what we did do is we knew how to win. You know, we had learned how to win. We were tough. We beat good teams. You know, we beat really good perennial NFC teams. We beat the Niners, and I think it was week 4, kind of shocked the world. That was the Deion Sanders, Steve Young, you know, Terrell Owens, Jerry Rice was still playing. Like, that was a really good team. So I think I kind of made the Pro Bowl because it was such a good story. And I was a winner. It wasn't like I carried the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with my right arm, you know, that, and I never claimed to have done that. You know, that was not my job, to be quite honest with you. My role as a quarterback every time we won was, I think I was the original quote unquote game manager. Like, I really was. Like, for years, I hated that moniker. I hated that because I felt it was a kind of a slanderous term, and I think still many do use it to be slanderous. But I remember working a Monday night game with Steve Young, who became one of my best friends to this day, and you know, we worked, I think, 6 years on Monday Night Football together. And he's sitting there on the desk and he's talking about a really good quarterback, and he goes, you know, the thing that pisses me off, this is Steve Young speaking, is that people criticize game management. He goes, I'm sitting here in the Hall of Fame. He goes, I'm not in the Hall of Fame because all these runs I made or these big throws I made to Jerry Rice. I'm in the Hall of Fame and we won Super Bowls because I managed the game. He goes, it's 90% of playing quarterback. It's decision making. It's high level, high impact decision making. And the best ones know how to do it, and the bad ones don't know how to do it. And you know, it was kind of rewarding to hear that next to my colleague and friend who's a Hall of Famer, because I have a lot of satisfaction in being a winner and knowing how to win. And a lot of times you have to put yourself second to know how to win. And, it's been a formula that as I've coached high school or coached young kids in the Elite 11 or whatever it is, many of them come back that have had these massive statistical careers. But what they're most proud of is the decisions they learned how to make and how to manage a game and take a game that you're not playing very well and still know how to win. Or never letting the other team have a chance to win because of how you handle the clock or handle an audible or handle a situation. And it's kind of like the secret sauce of winning. And I really learned a lot of that 97 year with Tony Dungy.
Coach, I remember back in your playing days toward the end of your career, I remember so many people on the set on ESPN saying that you just weren't getting a fair shake. It's like, he's won a Super Bowl for Tampa. He's done this. Why aren't they giving him a chance? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't other teams looking at him to do this or lead them? Do you feel like toward the end of your career, how did you feel about all that? Because I thought you got a raw deal. I thought that it wasn't fair. And of course, none of us get to play forever. None of us get to do this forever. It's a short period of time. But it also hurts when you prove it on the field and win a Super Bowl, and yet some people still doubt you. How did that make you feel, Coach? Because I just thought it was a raw deal for you, and I want to hear how you felt about it because I think you could have won at a lot of places.
That is a loaded question because when in 2000, after we won the Super Bowl and Baltimore didn't re-sign me, and I wasn't cut, I just wasn't re-signed as a free agent. They wanted Brad Johnson, ended up going to Tampa instead of Baltimore, and then Elvis Grbac gets chosen over me, who I did not think was a very good player. I carried a lot of bitterness. And then I learned really quickly through my faith journey that bitterness only affects the person that's bitter. Like bitterness is one of the stupidest emotions to have as a human. It's so hard not to, and we all do it, but it doesn't affect anybody you're bitter against in a negative way. It affects you. Mm-hmm. And it started rotting me from the inside. And I learned real quickly, and God taught me this very clearly, that if I was going to be a good husband and a good father and a good member of society and have an impact on the world for good, that I needed to get rid of that. And whatever happened in my career, I needed to kind of be open-armed and receive it and make the best out of whatever circumstance I was in. And salaries and status and all those things didn't matter to me as much after that. Now, I also realized that some of the things that were being said about me were true. And it's hard to hear the truth as an athlete, especially as your skills diminish. Now we're talking, I was drafted in 94, and now we're talking it's 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it was. My skills weren't the same. I had gone through some catastrophic injuries. I kept going through injuries. The second half of my career was littered with injuries. My arm went from being super strong to very average. My athleticism went from being elite to not even good. I wasn't as good a player. Now I was smarter. I could really understand. I was really a coach playing more than a high level player playing. Right. So I had to receive as truth some of the criticisms. So yeah, people were saying, oh yeah, he deserves a better shot. And maybe I did based on resume, but I also understood that I'm sitting here grooming Alex Smith in 2005 or 6 in San Francisco, and he's more talented than me. Now I'm more accurate. My arm's better. I'm smarter, but he can go get out of trouble. And he's young and he's going to be really good. Matt Hasselbeck, the time in Seattle, I was better than him early, but then when he figured it out, he was better than me. And you have to receive those things. And then Cleveland, I played really darn good for a while in Cleveland, but then I got hurt again. And once you're hurt, you're not as good. So these things are happening in my career. And then I go to TV where I realize that, a lot of the things an analyst will say on TV, very rarely are they right, but they're kind of right. There's a difference. Like when whoever, I'm not going to call anybody out here, but when your favorite NFL analyst tells you something, he's not right, but he's kind of right. Like he doesn't know what's going on in that building. He doesn't
Right.
know exactly what was taught on that play, but he knows enough that there is some truth in it. And I had to start realizing, both as an analyst and looking back at my career, that there were some real truths in those things. So I look at my 14-year career. I don't think about my career very often. You know, my career ended when I was 35. I'm 53 now. I've had like 4 careers in life. I've been a professional football player. I've been a high-level analyst. I've been a business owner. And I've been a coach, right? And I've run the largest camp series in the world. So that's 5. So, you know, I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of stuff poorly, and I've done a lot of stuff really good. And I've just kind of learned that I'm on assignment, and the next assignment given to me, I'm going to absolutely put my heart, soul, passion, every part of me into it, and try to be the best I could be at it, and not get caught up in what other people think. Like the person that thinks the little about what other people think is me. I just don't worry about it because I can't control it. And if I'm going to teach a building to operate in such a way that other people's words, the things you can't control, should not affect you, then I need to model that first. So when I'm being said I'm a bad coach, I wasn't ready for college football, whatever people say, 1, there's probably some truth in it. And 2, it cannot affect my approach, because I owe my building. I have about 140, 150 people that, you know, I'm responsible for. I need to model to them that you can only invest in the things that you can control. And as soon as you start investing in things you can't control, you're getting beat.
Our guest this evening is Super Bowl winning quarterback Trent Dilfer, and he is now the head coach at UAB. And Trent, you just mentioned it a little while ago. You were signed by the Baltimore Ravens and helped lead them on a 7-1 record to make the wild card berth. Walk us through that seven game stretch and then the run to the Super Bowl there in 2000 for Baltimore, please.
Well, I'll do it quick because I do have to run here pretty soon.
Okay.
I signed as a free agent. I got hurt in Tampa. They owed me a bunch of money. They weren't going to pay a hurt guy. Cool. I'm a free agent. Go to Baltimore as the backup. Quickly, I realized I'm better than the guy starting, but I was going to have to wait, be patient, be a great teammate. So I tried to be a great teammate. I tried to learn this team. I realized very quickly this team was better than the team I just come from that just got to the NFC Championship game. And I'm like, okay, this team can win a Super Bowl if the quarterback plays a certain way. Right. So the guy in front of me doesn't play that way early on, costs us some games. They give me the reins. I know very specifically how I'm going to play, what our formula is going to be, and that we're going to. I remember telling my family early on, we may never lose. And we lose the first game I start, kind of some freakish things, playing the Steelers. They're really good at the time. And then we never lose again. So we go 11-0 after that.
Right.
The defense was epic. I think it's the greatest defense of all time, but that's up for debate. They were dominant. But when you play with a dominant defense, there's a style for which you need to play with offensively. And we bought into it. Not just me, the quarterback, but we bought into it as an offense. And we took a lot of pride in it. We were a bunch of tough guys. We were a bunch of blue-collar guys. You know, we wanted to turn every game into a barroom fight. We felt that if it was 2 a.m. and the lights were coming down and everybody had too much to drink, that we were going to kick your ass. Like, that was just kind of the philosophy that we had offensively. And we lived it. And we won close games. We blew some teams out. We beat up teams physically every game. And we just knew how to win. And I remember getting the week of the Super Bowl, we were talking about how bad we were going to beat the Giants. We thought we were going to beat them by 50. Like, we just knew how good we were. And yes, it was I always use the pitch analogy. Our defense had a 99 heater with movement at the end. You know what I mean? Our defense was unhittable. So we had to be the off-speed pitch. So we were the curveball, and we understood that, hey, we're only going to get thrown 13 times a game, but we got to maximize those opportunities, and we got to set up the fastball. So everything we do offensively has to be to set up that 99 heater. And it was a great formula. It's a formula that works if you have a great defense. I mean, Saban did it early in his career at Alabama before the SEC kind of changed to an offensive league. It's a formula that in the 90s, early 2000s really worked if you played great defense. And we had it, and we did it, and we loved it.
Coach Dilfer, I got 3 short questions for you, and they'll be quick answer. But with that being said, who's your favorite NFL analyst?
The guy that I think teaches the best is Tim Hasselback when he still does it. He's coaching now. But he the limited ESPN he does now, he teaches the game very well. I'd probably go with him right now.
All right. And Tony Dungy always claims that he never yells. Have you ever heard Tony Dungy yell? And if you have, what did he yell at you about?
What he would do is he wouldn't yell, he would change his tone and be very direct, and it usually came with us losing our poise. So if there was a fight in practice, if there's a stupid penalty, it would sound something like, if this is my normal inflection and it was Tony's normal, his inflection would change to something like this. Now listen, I have told you, we have talked about this. We cannot, if we want to win, we cannot do losing things. We must do winning things. I have defined for you what winning things are and what losing things are. So no, he would never yell, but his tone would be that of a strong father when their teenage girl decided to go on a date with a knucklehead.
That's great. My last question, and I always love asking coaches and players this on the show. Of all your years playing football, whether it was a kid, high school, college, pro, or as a coach, what's the most fun you've ever had in football?
I'm going to say right now.
Okay.
Close second would be the last year at Lipscomb, because we had just built something so special. We're the 3,000th ranked team in high school football when I got there. And that last year we're the 11th ranked team in the country. And it wasn't just because of talent. Like, we had just built something very special. That was really fun. But right now, I would say, because everybody else is complaining about college football, and I love the battle. Like, I just wake up every morning tingly about the battle ahead. Like, the hair on my arm stands up because I know our backs are against the wall. I know that we shouldn't be good. I know that everybody says we're not going to be good. I know all the negativity, and it just fires me up. The challenge, the battle is so exhilarating. I love the people in the building this year, player, coach, staffers. We're all moving the same direction. I've always said this. Winning is getting everybody to go the same direction. When you're really good, everybody's going fast in the same direction. You're on the Autobahn. Up until this year, I haven't been able to get everybody going the same direction. At least right now, we're all going the same direction. Now, some guys are only driving 12 miles per hour, but I'm driving 130, and their 12 better catch up, because we're all going the same direction. And it's so flippin' fun to know that you're going to work with people that are like-minded, that want the same things, that are willing to sacrifice the same things, and willing to kind of defy the odds.
Coach, my final question for you, looking back on your NFL career, when people mention player and quarterback Trent Dilfer, how do you want to be remembered for your NFL days?
Great teammate, passionate, leader, winner.
Wow. Coach, thank you for this time. I know coaches are extremely busy, but anytime you want to come back on, you're always welcome, and we would love to have you on, whether during an off week or after the season. We understand about NIL and recruiting and all that. We know we got to pick and choose, but you are always welcome back, Coach.
Yes. Coach, you there?
I heard you say NIL, then you cut out.
I know you're busy with NIL and recruiting and all of that. I know your schedule is incredibly tough, but you're always welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you, whether it's the summer or when things die down or right before a bowl or off week. You're always welcome back, and we hope to have you back soon.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Go Blazers.
All right. I love that. See ya.
All right, so Heath, that is going to wrap up our interview there with Coach and former Super Bowl champion Trent Dilfer. Really do want to thank him for joining us. And Heath, we only dived into a little bit of our interview there with him because he was on time constraints. But Heath, he was an incredible talent there at Fresno State.
Yeah, I was a big fan. We always love the underdog stories, and I love the underdog. That's why we watch Rocky, right? That's why we love the movie Rudy. We love the underdog story, and with that, Trent Dilfer was always the underdog. He even talked about it in his high school days. Fresno State was the only team that recruited him as a quarterback.
Yes.
He was always doubted in the NFL. He won multiple Super Bowls, and he still couldn't. It was MVP one time. He could not get any love from NFL teams. It just blows my mind. So with that, Coach Dilfer always kind of defined the odds, and he's still loving that role doing that as he's coaching UAB and trying to make things happen there. So, it's just fascinating to hear his story, see it played out in front of all of our eyes as a player and now as a coach, and to see his journey continue, and he still has that fire, Stephen.
And Heath, as a player, to wrap this up, he played in the NFL like we talked about with Tampa Bay, Baltimore, then he went to Seattle, then he went to Cleveland, and he finished up his NFL career out in San Fran with the 49ers of San Francisco.
I'm just glad his career didn't end in Cleveland like a lot of people's careers do.
Yes.
I'm glad that he could get that last opportunity. I've never been a 49ers fan. I've never liked the 49ers, but I'm glad it didn't end in Cleveland.
And then Heath, after all of that, his Fresno State Bulldog number 12 jersey was retired, and nobody else can wear the number 12 for the Bulldogs of Fresno State.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Very impressive.
And I will also give you this as well. In 2009, he was inducted into the Fresno County Athletic Hall of Fame.
It's amazing to hear his story. His stepdad raised him, was high school coach, and he always had these great coaches along the way. The great Tony Dungy. And I would really like to pick his brain more about Tony Dungy and what he thought. But, Stephen, Billy Graham used to say it. He said, a coach can touch more lives than any minister can in a lifetime. A coach in one season can touch more lives than any minister can in his entire lifetime. And that blew my mind. Yes. But it's true. Coaches are special people. And, as a father of 4 kids, I want my kids to have great coaches. I want them to have people that will touch their lives and not only guide them on the field and build them up on the field, but build them up in life. Yes. Dilfer is doing that. He was very fortunate to have that in his life, and he is paying it back tenfold.